We have a free press, so-called free press.
Theoretically, yes.
There are advantages and disadvantages of a free press. They reported the Boston bombing. There will very likely be copycat things because that was reported. Where the press is controlled, that would not be reported, so there would be no copycat. So there are some disadvantages to a free press. Where is the press in all of this? If, in fact, there is a story to be told here, why isn't the press telling that story?
Well, I can...
Do they seem to be, if there's a cover-up, do they not seem to be complicit in that cover-up?
Yes. Well, can I comment on that?
By control from above.
I think this is a really central issue. And I actually, over my 22 years of being deeply involved with this at various levels, I have concluded that the secrecy is very much involving the fact that on certain issues we do not have a free press any more than we have a free market economy. And I think that this is a serious problem. And I have a document that will be in the materials that I'm providing for the committee that is a 1991 CIA document where it talks about the fact that they have folks at all the major media outlets, wire services, news magazines, television networks, to change, alter, or delay and stop stories that they would like to see stopped. Now, this was released briefly and then reclassified. It was under the first President Bush term. And this is not a contested CIA document. What that means is that on certain issues, this will be absolutely, there will be an intervention. And we saw this happen with the 2001 event at this National Press Club disclosure launch 12 years ago almost today, on May 9th of 2001. And one of the people I dealt with, Bob Schwartz, who was on the board of Time Life that later became AOL, Time Warner, and CNN, the whole conglomerate, he told me that he was very good friends with Mike Wallace, and he had given him a lot of these documents that we had, and Mike Wallace wanted to do this story at 60 Minutes. And corporate CBS, and I think at the time was controlled by Westinghouse, a big defense contractor, did not permit him to do the story. Ira Rosen, who was at ABC News executive producer for 2020 and Primetime Live, he came to my home in Virginia, out near Thomas Jefferson's home, ironically, and I gave him 35 digital hours of top secret witness testimony and many documents. And he said, this, if true, is the biggest story ever. I want to do this story. I said, well, I'll cooperate fully. He had gotten his Emmy working with Mike Wallace at 60 Minutes, where he has returned. And I said, I don't think you'll be allowed to do this story. And Ira Rosen said, oh, yes, I'm the executive producer of these shows. I can do it. And I said, okay. Well, 2 weeks later, he called me up. And he said, Dr. Greer, they won't let me do this story. I said, Ira, who are they? And he said, Dr. Greer, you know who they are. Now, I could tell you probably 100 stories like that. And this becomes very worrisome. Here we are in the National Press Club. And we have a lot of enormously important information. And you know, in the New York Times, if you have 3 confirmed sources for a controversial story, they can run with it. Here, the Disclosure Project, which I founded some years ago, it was first Project Starlight when I began to work with Lawrence Rockefeller. We now have over 500. Many of them, I have the names of them and they can be subpoenaed. Some of them, about 100 of them, we have on digital videotape. Why isn't this a story? And I think that this becomes a very important question in a democracy. You know, if you have the larger media not covering something that 50, 60% of the public believe is true, and there's an enormous amount of data, 4,000 landing cases, the Cometa report where they documented the landing in Provence of a craft, the Bentwaters case where a craft landed at RAF Bentwaters and left physical trace that has been confirmed by the Ministry of Defense. We have all this hard data and information. We have radar traces of these objects moving. We have pilot cases. We have over 3,500 pilot reports in our archives. This isn't a story. How can that be?